Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We are from Group 5 and we would like to present our material about national or global the framing of 19th century American literature. First of all, let us introduce ourselves. My name is Narisa Utami as the first speaker.
My name is Shasa Diarani Ahmapat Sausiwa as the second speaker.
My name is Lily Hajra as the third speaker.
My name is Novianti as the last speaker.
So the first material will be explained by me. 19th century American literature has traditionally been understood by Americanists based in the United States to be the classic period of their subject, the era in which the field produced its most notable and enduring writers. This in itself marks a difference from the way American literature is characteristically understood in the wider academic world, where it is usually understood as primarily a modern subject, with a focus on contemporary writing and a historical reach that often does not go back earlier than the Great Gatsby. The next material will be explained by the second speaker.
3.1. These are the picture of Abraham Lincoln and James Fenimore Cooper. The first picture is Abraham Lincoln. According to legend, Harriet Beecher Stowe, who published this best-selling Uncle Tom's Cabin in 1853, was subsequently greeted by Abraham Lincoln at the White House as the little lady who started the big war. And of course, Stowe's sentimental description of how African-American family life was disrupted on Southern plantation was brilliantly effective in galvanizing public opinion during the years leading up to this internecine conflict. But many other writers of the 1850s deal with sectional issues in one form or less explicit forms. And the second picture is James Fenimore Cooper, the major American writer in the 19th century who deals most explicitly with Indian affairs is James Fenimore Cooper. Cooper's 5 leather-stocking novels, published between 1823, The Pioneers, and 1841, The Deerslayer, take as their central concern the cultural conflict between an indigenous society and a colonizing power that seeks to marginalizing or displace them. And the next speaker will explain the next slide.
3.2. Frederick Douglass. The intertwining of narratives with this Gothic style suggests how some of the commercial success of these narratives among 19th century readers was linked not so much to virtuous abolitionist sentiment but value typically associated with lurid representation of violence and bondage. The sense of distance associated with the Gothic genre can be seen as a parallel to the strategic distance employed by African American writers so as to gain perspective on their native territory. The second is George Eliot. George Eliot nevertheless reviewed Dread very positively in Westminster Review in 1880, calling it a great novel, even while specifically on political pertinacity. The last speaker will be Novianti.
3.3 Planetary Space and Intellectual Distance. Emily Dickinson and Mark Twain. The first is Emily Dickinson. Poetry of Emily Dickinson is interesting to consider in this regard, not least because she has been reviewed in both traditional and popular terms as a quintessentially American poet, one whose style was linked inextricably to a specific genius of place. Dickinson is with her poem, Means My Criterion Fortune, where she acknowledges her is constructed by angle of vision, although Dickinson is sometimes celebrated rather sentimentally in terms of her interest in the folk culture of her time. Her works also reveals a much more austere intellectual concern to colorate American landscapes with the scientific theories of evolution and geology that were linking US scenes to a much more expansive circumference during the 19th century. 19th century American literature has been diminished in various ways by excessively narrow pedagogical perspectives that have tried to claim authors from Emerson to Dickinson to Twain as some as if they were merely spokespersons for an established set of social values. The second one is Mark Twain. The international were also remarked upon by Mark Twain during 1895 Australian trip, where he draws of between the south as he described how from the multitudinous islands in these regions for them.
So that's all the presentation from us. We apologize if we made any mistakes, and we would like to thank you all for watching this video. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.